Hey guys, Gordon, Cockerpunk here, you know the drill. In my new house, actually, a lot's been going on since we talked last. Yeah, bought a house. It's pretty awesome. Um, and wanted to just update you guys because Kevin released a video with me playing in it at Living Legends this last year, and everybody was like, "Cockerpunk still plays paintball?" Well, yeah, I do. I think the death of a good YouTube channel is when they just continue to put out content just to remain relevant and talked about, but really don't have anything of substance to say. And I haven't had a lot to say in paintball lately, so I haven't been making a lot of videos. But we've got a really fun one today to do. The Old School Guns tour of one of the most interesting guns because it's so modern, actually. The Old School Guns tour is exciting and fun and interesting because at that time we had just this mush of things going on, people coming up with ideas left and right, and a lot of them were not very good ideas, and a lot of the interesting Old School Guns contain a lot of those not good ideas. But they were all ideas on how to kind of solve these problems associated with paintball. And the gun I have for you today is kind of the... we took this kind of hopper, if you will, of ideas and distilled it and boiled it down into kind of the form that all paintball guns were really, gonna follow from here on out. And that's this gun here. It kind of is the distillation of all the ideas throughout all of the Old School guns of that era down into one gun that really pointed to the future and the form factor and the basic features that all paintball guns were going to have following that. And that is the 2K2 Intimidator. Bob Long's 2002 Intimidator. This is really the gun, like I said, that distilled all of the good ideas that everybody had into one gun that really, I mean, we make better guns today, more refined versions of this idea. And I don't just mean the stack tube poppet system. Obviously that's still around, but all of those all of the ideas that this gun kind of brought together into one. It distilled all of them, and it turns out that this was the gun that everyone really wanted all along. Other guns had some of these features, but this one is the one that has them all. And I'm talking about basic layout features like the foregrip being the high pressure regulator, the LPR being mounted under the barrel on a front block type piece, all the electronics being in the grip frame of the gun, not in the body, a 9-volt battery to power them, and a screen to interact with the board. And speaking of electronics, the most important feature, brake beam eyes, were on the 2K2 Intimidator. We also saw, the widespread adoption of Delrin as the bolt-making material, clamping feed neck, autococker threads, and as I said, no electronics in the body. I think that's an important distinction as well. Just kind of these basic layout features that almost... this gun didn't invent any of those features. This gun was the combination of all of them into one gun. Other guns had, some of them, maybe most of them, but this one really had them all. And that's what makes it kind of, in my opinion, kind of the conclusion, as I said, kind of the culmination of the Old School guns. This gun was made in 2002, right? So it was it's 2015, so that's 13 years ago, and is, for all intents and purposes, a modern paintball gun. Now, like I said, obviously we make better guns than this today that are smaller, lighter, faster, more efficient, more gentle on paint, etc., etc. But really, we haven't seen a kind of step change form factor step forward in the way that the 2K2 Intimidator did it. I kind of liken it to, those of you who maybe know a little bit about the history of military technology, the Dreadnought battleship. It kind of essentially rendered everything that came before it kind of moot because it was just a game changer, and every gun since then has not that far strayed from this concept, and this build of how the gun goes together, and what basic features a paintball gun needs. So let's talk about this gun in particular. I got this from a guy. He just bought it locally, and I ran over to his house as soon as he got it because I've been excited to do this show. I was just talking to Bryce actually about this show, and I was excited to do it, so I had to run over there real quick. Got it for the show. Couple of fun things that this gun did kind of introduce. This gun, one of the coolest things about it is it has a vintage Wasp board, Wicked Air Sports. Now, one of the fun things about electronics at the time, they were fairly primitive, and the idea of aftermarket boards was not even really a thing until Wicked Air Sports and the Intimidator. The claim to fame that the Wasp board had over most stock boards at the time was that it had adjustable debounce, which was not really a word in paintball before the Wasp board. Settings like debounce didn't really exist. Almost all paintball gun boards needed a debounce because when you use a micro switch, you basically inherently create trigger bounce. It turns out that a micro switch does not switch on and off digitally. When you start to depress a micro switch or almost any sort of physical switch, you actually get multiple trigger events within maybe a millisecond or two of you pulling the trigger. So even to just get paintball guns working in the first place, they had to invent a debounce setting, which is usually either a timer or some sort of filtering. It could even be done with a hardware filter, like a capacitor or something like that as well. But almost everything had a debounce. The trick with the Wasp board is it had the adjustable debounce, and so basically what happens is everybody turned their debounce down to nothing, and then combined with shot buffering, you would be shooting insane speeds. The other thing is, like I said, this gun had eyes, so you didn't have to worry about chopping. And not only that, is the good old Revolution loader was essentially obsolete at the same time. So you had Halo B, eyes, adjustable debounce. You had the perfect kind of storm for these massive, massive rates of fire that we were shooting in the 2002 to about 2006 range. Just insane speeds. Long before the 15 BPS cap, long before the 12 BPS cap, long before the 10 BPS cap, there was just insane speeds. People were shooting high teens, 20s off the break, and at other points during the game, just insane trigger speeds. And this gun was kind of the start of that entire craze. The Angel was fast, but the Angel couldn't use halos at the time because of rollback issues. So the Angels didn't have eyes until like 2004. So this gun really dominated the firepower circuit for a long time. Now, I know a lot of people will say the Matrix was in a lot of ways, the original DM3 style Matrix was in a lot of ways this gun. And I'll give the Matrix credit for being as close to this as possible. There are some dumb things in some old school features, shall we call them, in the Matrix. The unused air tubes, the battery in the back, just kind of silliness. The original Matrix also didn't come with eyes. That didn't come until the die version. So then the DM4 was probably the first one that had lots of CNC milling and kind of introduced the space dildo kind of concept for milling, which is followed ever since. But in terms of design features, this one I think is the one. The other one that people would bring up is the SFT Shocker. SFT Shocker came out in 2003, and everybody might think that is a modern gun because the modern Shockers, well, old now, are fairly modern-ish guns. Well, you have to remember that in 2003, the original Shocker came with a gadget grip. didn't even come with a regulator. Didn't have a low pressure regulator. Didn't even have a high pressure regulator. You had a bottom line mounted regulator on that gun. Didn't have eyes stock. It was an upgrade piece that you had to buy in order to make your SFT in 2003 have eyes. So I mean, you're just missing basic features that that needed to be commonplace at that time. So this gun is just kind of, like I said, the culmination of the Old School Guns tour in terms of design ideas, and that's not just the stack tube poppet. Obviously, it's not the first stack tube, nor has it been the last stack tube poppet, but it is just the general layout and features of the gun are just distilled all of the things that made electronic guns work and all of the possible solutions into a form factor that everyone kind of just agreed was going to be the form factor that paintball guns were going to take into the future. And I don't think we've quite seen a step change like that since. Definitely there's been evolution and improvement in this design and this form factor, but it hasn't been just kind of a coalescing of ideas again. I think hopefully we might see one of those in control software here in the next few years. I would love to see that. We could see the resurgence of closed loop features on guns and kind of another one of those expansions and all these different people doing different solutions, and then kind of another coalescing, kind of the same as the 2K2 Intimidator was. So yeah, I think it's a fascinatingly fun gun. This particular one, like I said, has the Wicked Air Sports board, which I love. Very period. Something that's awesome too is this gun has both of the Dragon eye decals. Clamping feed neck, nice little extra feature to make it work. And then these guns, a very, very common upgrade is the adjustable ram cap in order to set the ram placement in the gun to avoid chopping and rollback problems. It had like a 45-esque frame. All of them came with a double trigger. The Dragon had this unique trigger and trigger guard setup. The Dragon also had the unique milling up here, and obviously the body is really well done. I love this tri-fade. I've always wanted an NYX in the same tri-fade, the same the blue, black, and silver tri-fade. This came with the two-piece long shot barrel. I actually didn't even realize that these were two-piece barrels back in those days, but this one is actually a two-piece 12-inch barrel. Now if I can get it off, that would help. Am I going to be foiled by my slightly sweaty hands? I hope so. There we go. Yeah, I didn't even realize that back in the day these were two-piece barrels, but they were. Very short little back on these barrels, and I'm glad that this thing still has the matching barrel for it. Cocker threads, like I said. This gun was kind of the first in that. One of the first guns that outside of the auto cocker that really was really popular and really kind of set the standard to cocker threading being the future standard that everyone used. So yeah, just a really fun little jaunt into old school performance guns and kind of a unique ending philosophically to the kind of chapter of development and innovation that was the era of guns that I cover on the Old School Guns tour. So this was kind of the end, and very cool gun. Still very useful today, Honestly, you just throw any modern loader on here, any tank on here, and besides for a little bit of extra weight, you'd probably be fine on any paintball field with this gun. It's a nice little shooter. So, anyway, I am looking for some old school guns, so if you want to message me if you got something, I'd be looking for like an AM Diadem maybe something that you haven't seen on the show. So if you got something, you could message me. Otherwise, or if anything crazy comes up in paintball that I feel like I need to comment on, I might make a video. But like I said, kinda, I'm not gonna make content just for the sake of content. I'll just make good content for you guys. So you guys have a good one. I'll talk to you later.